namarra didee pivijile falmate keerona kakale dabarsinu lafa gootota jijjiirenya nooke hayota warra kaleessa dararani eenyummaa jijjiiri jedhani injijjiiruu danda'e malee sirna naftanyaatti yombule kaleessa harree dandufani farda romticha rasamani dubbate seenaa rirmisi nyaatu farda romtichaatiin kan daadatu dubbaddo jaapaleen jisoo dhiiga dulli miliilik baasitti fiiga ittiin seenaa mucaa mammuuchee dhiira naftanyoota sirrii galchee. Maqaa keenyaan aangootti baatanii nu nyaachuudhaaf ilkaan qaratanii nun bulchiisa nuti dadadanya nuti mpeenu gaasirna naftanya qabdee qeerroo qabsoo ga'ii galmaan sossobbiidhaan keenyan fayyuu garaan sodaa lubbuuf dhugaa gandabsiite lubbuu goota meeqaa galaafatte. Muratako Padasako Arrana keessaan dhufte gootako Falmatako Elemoe bakka kan keetii sanan bu'e Boratako Laggasako gootummaa kan keendaalee jabaako.
Welcome to Gada News Network. This is a special episode. My name is Mustafa Ibro. I'm your guest host. Today, I'll be joined by two bright young ladies, Milko Badaso and Mustaria Muhammad. We will be discussing about the current issue affecting the Oromo people in particular and the Ethiopian politics in general. I would like to welcome our guest of today, Milko Badaso and Mustaria Muhammad. Milko, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, I want you to introduce yourself to our viewers. And if you could tell us your education background, your upbringing, and how you came to involve in Oromo politics.
Yes, so my name is Milko Badaso. My fourth year of university, I study political science, and this is my fourth year. I was born in Ethiopia and I was raised in Kenya, and then I moved to Canada shortly after 6 years. My involvement in politics is based mainly on personal experience and family experience and the history that my family has endured and people in my community have endured. I have seen what political effects can do in every single country that I have been in. So I was a refugee immigrant in Kenya. The political situation was all over the place, and so was back home in Oromia, in Ethiopia. So my engagement in politics started from very young. It was visible to me. So I started being involved. I started doing my research. I started to critically analyze everything that was going on around me. And I was very interested in understanding power dynamics, which is what political science is, understanding power. And yes, so over the years, I just kept being involved in politics for that reason.
Thank you very much. Mustaria, I'll give you the same chance. If you could tell us who you are, what you are studying, and how you came so involved in Oromo politics. I was really surprised how bright and how informed you two are.
Thank you for having me as well. My name is Mustaria Muhammad. I'm a third-year student at the University of Winnipeg for Human Rights and Criminal Justice. And then my last year for Child and Youth Care at Red River College. I'll be finishing that this year, inshallah. I was born in Somalia, Hargeisa, but I was raised here in Canada, so I didn't really get the chance to be involved with my people back home as much as I wanted to. But I still did go through the oppression that, you know, our people are still facing now with my parents, because when we were younger, you know, like my parents used to be on the run from the Ethiopian government just because we were simply Oromo, we were known for being Oromo, and my dad was an activist, so that already had put a target on us. And so most of my life, like, I remember my parents just being on the run, which is why I was brought to Somalia. That's how I came about. I became involved in that just based off of experience, 100% experience. When I came here, though, I wasn't really as involved just because I didn't think there were opportunities for me to be so involved in it. But then when Hajalu's death took place, that's when I've seen, you know, most of the outcry of my people. And that's when I saw people come together for it. And that was like a chance for me to be, you know, reintroduced into that kind of thing again. So I was more than happy to take that chance.
Thank you very much. It is really interesting indeed. Milko, I'll come back to you. On our last Oromo protest here, in regards to the political assassination of our artist Hachalu Hundessa, you made a speech on City News that captivates thousands of viewers. And in fact, Mustaria was also made that speech on City News. The journalist who interviewed you contacted me and I said, wow, where have been those young ladies? So Milko, can you please explain to me, where do you get that energy, expressing your frustration, your anger, and the plights of the Oromo people, expressing and explaining to the Canadian population? That video was shared over 10,000 just in a single day, in single hours, and went into 200,000 shares over the course of where that video was online. Milko, can you please explain that?
Yes. So, like I said, it comes from personal experience. I have seen what oppression and abuse and exploitation of people can do. I have family members who are displaced, imprisoned. So for me, it was mainly because of seeing the effects of what that type of brutality and that type of exploitation can do to a human being. I've seen the traumas of my family members. My family is deeply into politics, a lot of activists, and they actually are the first-hand reason as to why I even got involved in politics. And seeing that effect to any human being, it will affect you. And for me, I am speaking obviously from a privileged point of view because I'm in a country where I get to express those beliefs, and I get to freely say how I feel about this type of exploitation, where our people in Oromia do not have that right. So for me, it amplified my anger, it amplified my pain, and the pain that I felt the people back home are going through. They don't have the opportunities and the privileges that I have to express myself freely. So just knowing that and acknowledging that and being cognizant of that, it makes you, it pushes you to another level. It pushes you to another degree. So for me, that's kind of where it strives from, is understanding that I have a platform in that sense. At the protest, I had a platform, and millions and millions of my people don't, and my family didn't at a certain point, and I still have family members who still don't. So when you have that kind of thought in your head constantly, it pushes you. You have to amplify the voices of the people who don't have that type of privilege. And for me, politics and what governments have done to communities, I've been able to see firsthand. I've been able to understand it, luckily. And as a human being, it is not even a matter of if I study politics or if you do an education. As a human being, these things will fundamentally affect you, whether you have firsthand experience of them or you see them on the media or on the news. The minute you hear stories of people being murdered, or people being falsely imprisoned, or families being broken apart, and the mental health effects that people do not discuss, the minute you hear those stories, as a human being in itself, it has an effect on you. And me as an Oromo, and me who gets to see what that effect can do to family members and people you love and people you care about, it will definitely, it encourages you, and it makes you understand how little you are in this world, and how little of an impact you can make, but how vital it can be at the same time. So that was partially where my energy and my drive comes from. It's just human experience and human understanding. And that's where at the protest I was passionate about. Yeah.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you so much, Milko. Mustaria, let me get back to you. I knew you when you came to Winnipeg, a little girl, maybe 5 or 6 years old. I remember you were bothering me, jumping on my shoulder. So sophisticated in politics, you get to this point. And like I said, that journalist contacted me and he want to meet you guys back again and do another interview, which I will gladly facilitate to do that. Can you reflect on that day, please?
For sure. For me personally, it was just going off of like the years of pain that I've seen my people go through, the years of oppression. And, you know, that day specifically was my one chance because before that, I wasn't able to express the way I felt, you know, for seeing my people be tortured and abused and hurt and being used in such ways. I wasn't able to express those feelings. The only way I expressed it was through school. If they asked me, like, write about your ethnicity, like what makes them special, you know. So I just wrote about the struggles instead, because that's what I wanted for people to know, that we are, you know, in a time of being oppressed and we need people to listen and we need the attention. So for me, those were the only, like, school was the only platform I had for me to really express how I felt about anything that had to do with my people besides my family. So that day I was full of, you know, rage. I was full of pain. It was really hard just standing up there and speaking about it itself, because like Hajalu was taken from us, and that was like really close. That was a few days after Hajalu was taken. So it was still fresh in our hearts, fresh in our minds. And, you know, just that day, it just brought a lot of pain more, because I was able to finally say the words that I've been building up for years and years and years. And like I said, when I got here, I wasn't as involved because I didn't have the platform. But that day for sure, I was able to speak out my mind, speak out on behalf of myself, you know, the years of pain that I was like enduring myself, the years of pain that my family has gone through and the people back home. And it just, the passion and love came from that. And just wanting for my people to know that, like, yes, I'm Oromo and I'm here and I'm not silent at all. Like, I'm here to stand with them. So that's what that day was for me.
You know what? This reminds me of the quote of our legendary hero, Wako Gutu. He said, "We will uproot subjugation, but if we can't do it, we'll raise our kids to it." It is so unfortunate. We are your parents and we're supposed to end the Oromo subjugation, but it is unfortunate you have to involve into it. And we are so proud of you and we are thankful you guys are taking the leading role. Milko, I'll come back to you. Let's get back to the current affairs in Ethiopia now. As we all know, for the past 30 years, Oromos have been persecuted, arrested, extrajudicial killing has been happening. And we thought for once and for all, that era is gone once the TPLF was overthrown and the current Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed took power. Unfortunately, the Oromo crisis continued. Forced disappearance, raping of our young women, killing of our elders continued. They are displacing Oromos in record numbers. For some reason, we are not getting the media attention we deserve from the world. And now, for the past 2 years, 2 weeks, there is Ethiopian, every media outlet in the world talks about this political crisis. Milko, what do you think? What did we do wrong? Why we didn't get this attention from world media, and why this crisis is grabbing international attention? Does the value of human life different from one to another?
No, that is a powerful question, and it's something that has been asked multiple times. And in regards to the falling of TPLF and Abiy Ahmed being into power, just to start it off from the beginning, you were right. Oromos were actually fundamental in the ending of TPLF. Oromos were protesting, they were being killed, and Oromo youth were very active in getting rid of TPLF and that entire dictatorship. The hope for Abiy Ahmed, even though he was not actually elected, the hope at that time from various groups in Ethiopia was that he would provide a fundamental change, and people believed that this was a time where change would come to Ethiopia and reconciliation and all of these amazing things that were promised by Abiy Ahmed and his administration, there was a lot of hope at that time. So for what has happened to Oromos for the past 2 years since he has come in power, it is destructive, and it is very sad. It is beyond sad, and he has made it his entire job to destroy the structure of Oromia and what Oromo people have worked for. He has eliminated media networks all over Oromia. And as a lot of us know, and that Oromo media networks are the only networks back home that are factually representative of what is going on amongst our people, because Ethiopian networks do not necessarily represent Oromia, and they don't represent the Oromo people. So he has made it his job to destroy Oromos, to decimate their spirit, by killing our artists, mass imprisonment, imprisoning opposition leaders, and he has literally destroyed the structure of what Oromo people have built up over decades. So what has happened now, it is quite sad, in my opinion. It is destructive, and in regards to why Oromos are not represented in the media, why they're not looked at as equally, that is what has happened in Oromo history and Ethiopian history as a whole. And that is why he has been so great. Abiy Ahmed has been good at destroying what is representative of Oromo people. He has destroyed businesses. He has destroyed the very things that would give Oromo people any type of stability or power. So since he cut down the media networks, Oromos have not had representation. So there's no way for the public to even be as informed as they would be. He has shut down vital people such as Jawar Mohammed, Bekele Garba, all vital to the Oromo movement. And I believe that is partially why it has not been publicized to the degree that it has. And you are correct in the sense that Oromos, they are not humanized, and they're not as valued, not only in Ethiopia, but worldwide. Oromos are the largest ethnic group in Ethiopia, yet they're also unknown to a lot of people, and their history and their identity has been repressed for years and years and years. And to come away from that and to rebuild and actually have an identity in the public platform, in the concept of having an identity in the world, it has been very hard for Oromos to do, because every time they have had the opportunity to do it, they keep getting destroyed, they keep getting abused, obliterated. And the difference, I believe, in the concept of the war right now, the civil war right now, is that he publicly declared this war. So once, as a politician, as he publicly declared this war, it will definitely be publicly known. And the Tigray army is huge, and they have a military base to actually function in this war. Oromos do not have an army. Oromos have never fought back against the government. They don't have the resources to do so, and frankly, it just has never happened. The difference is between the Tigray region is they have an army, they have resources to be able to fight and go to war. And I believe that is partially another reason as to why it is public and it's world known. But it is quite unfortunate. It is quite sad, and I believe that Oromo people as a whole are just not as valued when it comes to Ethiopia as a whole. It's just the dehumanization of Oromo people has become so real to the point where publicly nobody wants to discuss Oromos or their people at all.
Thank you very much. That indeed is the true statement of what is going on. Mustaria, can you add anything on those? And if you could tell me, what does this war to nations and nationalities in Ethiopia, those who dream to have free, equal shot to opportunity under the federal empire? As you know, Ethiopia is a federal government that has about 10 regions now. According to the Ethiopian constitution, every region have the right to self-administration and self-rule up to secession, according to Article 39. But now, Mr. Abiy is extending his federal power into regions. He changes the regional structure the way he pleased. Now, as Milko said, he publicly declared war on the people of Tigray in the name of managing rule and law. What do you make of this?
Well, first, Milka well said. She said everything perfectly. I will just add a little bit onto that. Like she mentioned, there was a point where she said Abiy was self-elected. That is one thing we need to keep in mind for sure, because we never elected Abiy to be up there. And even though, he was self-elected, we were looking at it as if he was a beacon of hope for us, because Oromos have been abused and tortured and oppressed. We faced all kinds of oppressions for years, generations, and centuries. So we thought that when Abiy took power, that was finally coming to an end. We were going to be looked at as equals. But that was the complete opposite. He didn't make any difference. Abiy just brought more terror, more, heartache, more pain, and more bloodshed. He brought exactly what the rest of the prime ministers were doing. And to me, I didn't see no change at all. Up until date, I personally don't seem to understand what it is that all these prime ministers of Ethiopia, or the government of Ethiopia, has against Oromo people in general. Like, what is it that, they hate about us? What is it about us that they fear so much that they have to go killing out people just like this every single day without having a reason? That's something I personally cannot come to a conclusion about, And as of what's going on right now, he publicly said, this is what's going to happen. I definitely do not agree with it. Even though they have the military forces, they have the resources to do that and defend their people and fight for their lives, I don't agree with it, because he's doing the same thing he did to us to them, and it's no different. And you can see Abiy is just using a pattern, and he's going from one ethnicity to another. He's just going and going, and he won't stop. He won't, because until he gets what he wants, he's not going to stop. And that isn't clear to me either, like what he wants, what he gets out of killing people that want to be viewed as equals, that want to live, that just want to have rights. So I personally don't understand, but I do think that with time, things will get better for us, and we're gonna get Busuma regardless. Like, we're gonna fight, and especially us now, like in the diaspora, there are so many people here in Canada who are fighting for the people back home. And we're more active, we're more vocal now than we were before, and that's exactly what Hajalu's legacy brought to us, and it's because of that we're fighting. But Abiy will go down regardless, he's gonna go down. But I just think the whole Tigray situation is different from ours, because, like she said, we do not have the resources to fight. We never did. Even before, we were always being oppressed. We never had the resources to fight. One day we will, inshallah, but it's not this time, because we have lost too many people. The Oromo media network has been shut down. As soon as Hajalu died, they shut that all down, because they didn't want people finding out the truth. They didn't want people being informed. They took all the political leaders and put them in jail. Some of them are really hurt right now, like in the hospital, and they're beat to the ground. And that's Abiy doing, his job. He made it a job to kill the Oromos and go after certain ethnicities and just keep doing it until he's satisfied, And so for me, I don't understand what it is. I don't see the point of having this war with the Tigray people either, because it's just going to end up in the same situation that we ended up in, which is fighting for our lives, losing people, and not having any rights, not being looked at as equals.
You perfectly explained. Let me add some point to this. I'm much older than you guys, and I lived through this Ethiopian and Oromo politics. One thing I realized was that every successive Ethiopian regime used the resources they basically generated from Oromia to subjugate us. Every successive Ethiopian empire, from Haile Selassie up to TPLF and up to PP, the foreign affairs, anybody who works in diplomatic structure will not be chosen from Oromos. So the Habashas will introduce Oromos as savage people who are out there just to make trouble. So we have been conducting non-stop Oromo protest. Finally, we publicized the Oromo issue to the world, and we get rid of TPLF, and we brought Abiy Ahmed with the blood and bones of over 5,000 Kairos. Unfortunately, he turned his back on us, and he continued going after the Oromo intellectuals, the Oromo elders, Oromo youth, being labeled as a criminals now, as a terrorist. So what we are lacking, the reason why the war on TPLF is widely publicized in the world is because during the past 30, 28, 27 years they were in power, they consolidated their foreign relations. They made friends in diaspora. They made friends in international medias where we lack, where we left behind. That is why I think their issue is glorified. One more point I think is the factor was those war is happening between two equally armed forces. TPLF is a de facto government at this point. They run their region fully independently without the federal involvement for the past 2 years, basically. They have all war equipment, and now they are exercising their mighty power by firing rockets to one another. So, having said that, Milko, let me get back to you. Let's compare Oromos to the Native Americans here. We live in Canada. This land is the land of Aboriginal people. The Canadian Prime Ministers, both Stephen Harper and Justin Trudeau, came on national television and apologized for the past doing that happened to the Aboriginal people of Canada or the Native people of Canada. When you compare the injustice that happened to Ethiopia, why each passing successive government never acknowledged the injustice that happened to Oromos in the hands of many Ethiopian regimes?
Yeah, I think that is actually part of the bigger picture of what Oromos are going through right now. Ethiopia has never been critical of its history. It is a country that has not acknowledged the realities of Oromo people and the realities of other ethnic groups within the country. It is not critical of its history. It does not acknowledge its history, and that is why we have gotten to the point.
Okay, Milko, let me get back to you. I was mentioning about the examples, the similarities of native peoples of Canada and the miseries Oromo people went through in Ethiopia. Can you compare and contrast how Oromos were treated in Ethiopia and how the native people of Canada is being treated here?
That is a great question. And I think it is fundamental in understanding the current climate of Ethiopia. I don't think enough people understand the history and the context of where Ethiopia was formed. So like indigenous people, they were colonized. Canada is a colonial country. They were displaced out of their land. They were killed. They were brutalized. Their culture was destroyed. Just like the Oromos in Ethiopia, with their land being displaced, killings, mass killings, and Oromos were subjugated to slavery, their culture, their identity repressed. They had to assimilate to the Abyssinian rule and what the emperors and this Amhara identity that was dominant at the time with the colonialism that formed Ethiopia. I don't think enough fundamentally Ethiopia is known for never being colonized. That is one of the biggest things that Ethiopia is known for. So, and I think it's fundamental in understanding why the Oromo identity is not, and Oromo history is not being told, because once you state that Ethiopia is a colonial country, then everything that a lot of people and the perception of Ethiopia will completely be destructed with it. And I think that's why Ethiopia's history does not want to identify with that, because if you understand Oromo history and the relationship with how Ethiopia was formed, then it will completely dismantle the structure of how Ethiopia in itself is formed. And I think that is why the relationship between Canada and Ethiopia is different. Is Canada acknowledges the history. It took the criticism. Of course, there's still things to work on. There's a lot of things that are still wrong within the system in itself, but the core difference is that Canada has acknowledged these truths and it has at the very least attempted or publicly attempted to reconcile relationships between the indigenous community of Canada and the governments and rulers of Canada at this time. Ethiopia has not even been critical of its history, let alone it has not acknowledged it. It does not want to acknowledge it. Actually, it has worked hard to repress this history. It has destroyed communities just to repress this history and the true identity of how Ethiopia was formed. And I think the current issues of Ethiopia are practically, if we're being critical, that is part of the reason that Ethiopia has the issues that it has. It has not acknowledged the historical effects of communities, and it has continued to persecute people and destroy these communities. So unlike Canada, which has acknowledged and has attempted to reconcile and build relationships and repair these communities at the very least, or is attempting to, Ethiopia has not only not acknowledged the history, it has not only not been critical of itself, but it has continued to oppress these people. It has continued to destroy these communities, and it has continued to neglect their identity and their culture. Oromo culture and Oromo representation is not known in any Ethiopian history books unless Oromos themselves represent themselves. Oromos would never have been known if not for Oromo people, Oromo youth, and the work that they have put in with sacrifices, immense sacrifices. So I think it is critical to understanding the issues of Ethiopia, because just like the Civil War, not only is this Civil War unnecessary, but this government is not even willing to engage in conversations with people who don't think like them or who don't agree in not only the history, but the current climate and how the future should proceed. And until that has happened, and until we can engage in dialogue and conversations that help to understand the current issues and how we can proceed, Ethiopia will never not know conflict. It will continuously continue as it is right now. And with the Oromo issue and the Oromo relationship with Ethiopia, it has to acknowledge the history of Oromos. It has to acknowledge Oromo identity. It has to represent Oromos publicly. Ethiopia is known for only specific ethnic groups' culture. If you ask anybody, when you think about Ethiopia, what do you first think of? They'll say that Ethiopia wasn't colonized by the Italians. They'll say that you guys practice Eskista, or if you ask them to put on a song of Ethiopia. Ethiopia is a country with over 80 different ethnic groups, and the largest ethnic group is Oromos, which is still not the national language. The representation is Amhara, which is Eskista, the Amhara language, the Amhara music. And what is the cause of that? The cause of that is because of the colonial history that Ethiopia has that it has neglected. And that is not in itself to cause any or to undermine Amharas or say anything bad. That is the factual history. When Ethiopia is represented, it only represents certain groups and the dominant group. It does not represent the collective identities of a country with diversity, a country with over 80 different ethnic groups with hundreds of languages. And for Oromo community, who is the largest ethnic group in that country with a population of over 50 million people, they have continued to be neglected, to be disregarded, to be imprisoned, to be killed, to have their identities ripped upon from them. Their artists are being destroyed. Their representations are being destroyed. It is doing exactly what colonialism intends to do, which is assimilate people and destroy their entire identity. So in regards to the Ethiopian issue, that is the number one vital issue that people need to discuss, is that Ethiopia has not been critical of its history. It has not acknowledged the destruction that it has caused upon people for years, upon Oromo communities, upon other communities, acknowledge or uplift them. And that is why Ethiopia will continue to have the problems that it does. Because you cannot destroy a people and expect them to love you and expect them to ask for unity. It does not work like that. Acknowledgement is necessary in order for growth and progress, and Ethiopia has not done that.
Thank you very much. Mustaria, as we live here in Canada, and from what we understand how world politics work, let's say Prime Minister Stephen Harper and Justin Trudeau came on national television in multiple occasions, apologized for what happened to the Aboriginal people during the era of colonization and in early 80s and even early 70s. But contrary to what is happening here, the so-called Ethiopian prime minister, who came into power by the blood and bones of Oromo youth, what he said on his first inauguration speech was he want to bring back the glorious Ethiopia and to celebrate Melenik and Haile Selassie, the emperors that washed their hand with the blood of Oromo people and nationalities. Can we go forward without acknowledging the past injustice, like Milko said?
No, absolutely not. We cannot move forward as Oromos or just a group of people moving forward without acknowledging the pain that we've suffered, without acknowledging the people that we've lost. I myself personally have lost family members due to this type of government being involved and government being in power. You know, and my dad, like I said, has spent his entire life on the run because of the Ethiopian government. So there is no way for me, or I guess any other Oromos, to move forward without wanting the Ethiopian government to acknowledge us as equals, to acknowledge the pain that they've caused us, the bloodshed that they've caused, and apologize for that. And beyond that, give us resources, give our land back, you know, apologize for everything they've done, take accountability. And that will start with Abiy, you know, resigning and going to ICC. And even right now, the Amharas are saying, Ye Milinik Zamasha, literally translating to the fact that Abiy is the Milinik of this generation. So that says a lot. That is a huge terminology, and that is one name and title being given to him. So to say that he is the Milinik of this generation, it says a lot, because Milinik himself has caused so much pain to our people, so much oppression. I don't know, the one thing that stuck out to me about Milinik himself is the fact that he literally cut our women's breast and put it on a hand. And Ethiopia right now, there is a statue representing that. So that is just one of the things he's done, and killing our people was another. And it just goes on and on and on. And there's so many lists. If you look at it deeply, if you take the time and actually educate yourself, there's so many things that each prime minister has done, promising, you know, we're going to help each ethnicity, we're going to bring Ethiopia back together, we're going to do this. Empty promises, all of them. That's what they've done. At the end, they all have one thing in common, and that is focusing and targeting the Oromo people. That's what they're doing, focusing on us and killing us and doing all this and that. And that's just what they've been doing so far. However, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has acknowledged the pain that they've caused the Indigenous people here. And they've been giving them resources. They've been trying to help them get back to where they, you know, need to be. And with that, with us, it's not happening. I honestly don't think it's going to happen, because the land that Abiy and all these people are on is ours. It's built by our people, built by our ancestors, built by people who have lost their life on it, who died on it, just trying to protect it. You know, so for me, it goes beyond that. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating to know that this is a every year kind of thing. It's just reoccurring. For 150 years, we've been oppressed in many different ways. We face so many oppression, you know, and like I said, for me, my family has spent years on the run, which is why I wasn't even able to be born in Oromia. My mom was, you know, trying to get me to my land, and that's where she wanted to give birth, but I wasn't given the chance. My mom wasn't given the chance because the Ethiopian government wanted to target her and my dad. So they had to go to a whole new country and start a whole new life there. And even there, we were oppressed because the Somali people did not look at us as equals. We were told not to practice our language. We were told not to wear our ada. We were told not to eat our own food. We could not do anything that said Oromo about us. Our Oromoma died, basically. They were trying so hard to, you know, hide who we were. And my parents, that was better than, you know, being killed for Oromo. So in that time, they had accepted the fact that we could speak our language and we could do anything, and they made a life there. But coming here, it's so different. You are able to speak on who you are. You're able to, you know, express your feelings, express how, you know, the struggles of your people was inflicted on you and how, like, you feel all this, right? So for me, I honestly don't think we can move forward without the Ethiopian government seeing us as equals and apologizing, Abiy and everybody involved in the Oromo killings and struggles to go to the ICC, because this is beyond just one person's life being taken. It's a whole nation, it's a whole ethnicity. We are the majority, but looked at as minority. And that is the issue, because we are not looked as people. We are not looked as human beings. We're not looked at as equals, you know? So we're looked at as animals, right? And that is the issue that has to stop. You know, the first step to moving forward for us is to get a whole new prime minister, for them to look at as humans, individuals, people, equals, and then people who own the land, and then move forward the same way Justin Trudeau has been doing here. So for us, it has to be a whole new thing that the Oromo people have gone through, changing everything that we face, the struggles that we've gone through. We need them to realize that, because if it was them in our place, I'm 100% sure it would be everywhere. There would be people fighting every single day. They would have a whole military force ready to fight. They will have people ready to speak up on this every single day, because it is an issue that affects just beyond one person. It's an issue that affects their entire ethnicity, and they do not like that. When one of them is hurt, all of them is hurt, right? And for us, it is these entire, like, it's the same thing. We just need them to know we are humans as well. The same way God created them, God created us. So there's absolutely no reason why our issues, our oppression should be sidelined. There's no reason why our traditions can't be practiced. There's no reason why we cannot talk our own language. My parents could not speak Oromo for years and years and years. They were forced to learn Somali. They were forced to learn Amharic. They were forced to learn Tigrinya. And why? When they have their own language, why? Why do they have to be forced to take on somebody else's culture when theirs is right there and they can't practice it? Why should they have to go out of their way, spend so much time and effort learning in school what Amharic means, what Tigrinya means, or Somali, or anything like that? Why do they have to take the time out of their day, get their children to go to school, pay money for a private school for their kids to go learn about different cultures and ethnicities when they can't practice their own? Why is that okay? Why? Why is the Oromo people so targeted? We are not able to wear our Ada clothes and be proud without being killed. Walking on the street, you know, wearing our flag, being proud with a smile. Why can't we do that? The same way the Amhara peoples can. Why can't we do that? The same way the Somalis can. Why can't we do that? What makes us so different? We have an ethnicity. We are people. The same way they want to practice theirs, the same way they want to be proud of theirs, we want to do that too. I'm 100% sure you guys are so proud of who you are. You guys are proud of standing behind the flag the same way I am. So why can't I hold it? Why can't I get my friends to hold it and smile? Why can't we enjoy who you are, you know, without having the fear in the back of your head? The Ethiopian government does not allow this. The Ethiopian government will not allow that. Why focus on the one ethnicity as if they own it, you know? So we need to not only look past this issue, but we Oromos need to stand together. We need to be proud of who we are, because that's what they're trying to stop us from doing. We cannot let that die. The minute that happens, we let them win. We let them be happy. And I personally cannot do that. I will stand on my 2 feet and be proud of who I am, be proud of who my parents are, be proud of the sacrifices they've made to get me here, to get me to say that I'm Oromo and I'm proud and I'm not Ethiopian. I'm not a Habasha. So thank you.
I couldn't agree more to both of you, and kudos to you. This is where the Kube generation comes in handy. So I am 100.5% sure, as long as this generation exists, Oromia will never be dominated again. So just to summarize about the truth and reconciliation, if Ethiopia as a nation has to move forward, they have to acknowledge the past unjust that was inflicted upon Oromos and nationalities, and come to the negotiation table and have a frank discussion to carve the way forward. I will summarize that point on just up to here. Next, let's move to Ethiopian justice system. Since Abiy Ahmed came to power, about 2.5 million Oromos were internally displaced from Somalia region, and every single day for the past 2 years, somebody is being killed, whether Kairos in peaceful protest, or somebody suspected of supporter of Oromo Liberation Front, they will find every excuse and they will extrajudicially kill whoever comes their way. But the Ethiopian government used this excuse. The reason they are doing this is to broad about justice, rule of law to the country. Is this rule of law only applies on Oromos? Because from history, from what we can see, the other, especially the Amharas, arm themselves up to their teeth, and they go around and commit all kinds of atrocities, and nobody go after them. Our political leaders, the likes of Jawar Mohammed, Bakala Garba, Hamza Borona, Shamsuddin Taha, pretty much the whole leadership of Oromo Liberation Army were in jail. Milko, is there?
I would disagree, 100% disagree. There is no justice system in Ethiopia. It is an injustice system. It is not. It has never been just, and it has capitalized off of the misery of other people. What Abiy Ahmed has done is destroy the very core of Oromo people, Oromo communities, and anything that they had or are having to stand on and build themselves. They're targeting Oromos, and mainly for the reason that they believe Oromos want independence and liberation, and therefore he wants to destroy their entire, not only their identity and their cultures, but their entire existence. This is a man who is, like Mustaria said, referred to as the Menelik of this generation. He is continuing a colonial history that has existed for years, and he has a military background, and he is using force, excessive force, and he is using strategic ways to denigrate Oromos and destroy their very will. Fear among Oromo community. He is continuing this fear mongering that we have seen historically happen in major nations all over the world, where you put fear among citizens so they never rebel and they never resist you. But the problem with his theory is that Oromos have constantly been persecuted, brutalized for centuries. And not only did they not stop, they continue to persist. And one thing he does not understand, and his administration does not understand, is that resistance and persistence in Oromia has constantly been there. This is over 150 years of the same thing. And he is using excessive force. He has mass imprisoned political leaders who, for the Oromo community, were building major strides. They were making major progress in the collective progressiveness of Oromos. They were doing incredible things, businesses, media representation, financial stability, all of these things that are vital to the evolution of a community. Abiy Ahmed has made it his job, literally, to destroy, because he thinks if Oromos have these things, if Oromos are stable and they have resources and they have representation and their job to not only disencourage diversity, but destroy it as a whole. And Oromos, their identity, their history, their religion, their culture is distinctive. It's not the Ethiopian identity that is loved or praised worldwide. And Abiy Ahmed and a lot of his supporters and a lot of people just like him view that as a threat. Oromo identity is a threat to the Ethiopian structure. It is the minute you claim and are proud, and we are seeing rises of Oromo youth who are being proud of their identity, proud of their history, proud of their culture, who are resisting in great numbers, not only back home, but in the diaspora, where Oromos are building this collective, united movement. And for Abiy Ahmed and for people who want to keep the old structure of Ethiopia and the colonial structure of Ethiopia, that is a threat. And he has made it his life's job since he got into power to destroy that threat, which is extrajudicial killings, mass imprisonment, anything that destroys your spirit and the spirit of Oromo communities, and the fear mongering to instill fear so they can resist. He even asked the political prisoners, to ask the Keros or the youth to stand down, which shows that he is threatened by this uprising of Oromos resisting these oppression and repressive regimes. And he, like many other communities, view that as a threat. And that is why he is consistently doing and being strategic in destroying the spirits and the resources and everything that Oromos need to progress.
Thank you very much, Milko. Mustaria, let me get back to you. Hachal Hundesa has been killed, and another artist were killed. In one occasion, a couple of years ago, in a place where called Mayu Muluke, we lost 37 innocent individuals in one day, and then the killing spree continued, and close to 100 people were killed. The then Ethiopian Oromia president, Lama Magarsa, said, we will bring those committed atrocities to justice. To death, no one brought to justice. Whoever robbed, raped, or killed Oromo never brought to justice. At the meantime, there are the supporters of Prosperity Party claiming this is the Oromo government. Do you think this is the Oromo government?
Absolutely not. Definitely not. One thing I've noticed throughout this entire journey is that because each prime minister or Ethiopian government in general is always promising something that has to do with, being united. And at the end of the day, they're doing the complete opposite. I've noticed from the start that it's always been, we are going to work towards, getting Ethiopia to be united. We are working towards acknowledging each ethnicity to be, like a group. But what has happened since? Nothing, basically. It's just killings. And even like last month, 5 people in Nakamate died, 5 boys, and they were hunted. They were hunted down by Abiy's force just so they could kill them. And before shooting them, they stabbed them. That is brutal. That is very brutal. 5 young men. They're not older than 20 years old. Imagine they're young and they just got out of jail and they were released. And beyond that, Abiy went and hunted them down. There's absolutely no way that our own people are going out of their way to kill their own. If we're fighting for, Oromo being free, if we're fighting for our freedom, we're fighting as a whole. We're fighting as Oromo ethnicity together, as Oromo people. None of us are going to stand and kill each other. We are not here for that. The Oromo government is not going to kill each other because we are not about that. We're here for each other. We want, we want freedom. We want democracy. That's what we're here for. And the start of Hachalu being, killed and assassinated, just the day after Hachalu was died, 200 plus people, Oromo, innocent, they were innocently protesting. And because they stood there for Hachalu, they died, lost their life. So to me, that is not even just like, at this point, it's beyond oppression. It's like searching for each individual. And if you stood up for what was right, you would be killed. You would be a target. Not only is your ethnicity wrong and you're told not to practice your identity and your personality, but now you can't even protest for those type of things. And you have to be looked at as a target, because the minute you claim your Oromo, the minute you want freedom for your people, for yourself, they will kill you. You can't breathe. You can't go around claiming Oromuma. You can't. That's just the way they look at it. So imagine our own people, our own government killing our own people. That does not work. To me, that does not sit well. It is the Ethiopian government, and it's been shown since day one. Anybody who has been in power has been killing our people. They are scared of our progression. They are scared of us evolving. They are scared of us taking back what is rightfully ours. They're scared for us to get our rights. And as much as we are standing up now, we need to do more. We cannot sit. We cannot be silent in this moment, because Hachalu's death just brought a whole lot of pain. For somebody who's been listening to Hachalu since they were a kid, I grew up to Hachalu. And to me, that they took a part of us. When they shot Hachalu, they shot every Oromo in the heart, because Hachalu was that huge. His legacy was that big, and he was known and loved by everybody. So when they took Hachalu from us, it was just another thing. it was like taken right back to when Abisad, was taken from us, and before that Usman Musa was taken from us. So it's just each generation somebody dies, somebody important to us is being taken, and it's like like we're just repeating history. We're reliving each moment again and again and again, and I'm tired of it. Like, I'm done. I cannot be losing any more people. We cannot be losing any more Oromo people in general. And right now, what we need to do is support the people back home because they need our help the most. We are privileged. We are so privileged. Us in the diaspora, we sit on our phones, we watch TV, we go to work, come back, and just relax. While the people back home are every single day have fear in the back of their heads to see if they're even going to live the next day or the next hour. So we need to stand by them, do what we can, be their voice, and stand up because we can't let them do all the work. We are privileged enough to get the MP's attention, get the government's attention from here. And Canada is the third highest donor for Ethiopia. So we need them to acknowledge what's going on back home and stop funding them. That is the number one priority right now. We need them to stop funding them because they're funding them to kill us and they're not aware of that. So Canada, like, we need to try as best as we can, do what we can to get Canada's government's attention to stop funding Ethiopia because they're in hand with what's happening back home. I blame them too. I blame Canada for what's happening back home because they are funding them and they're giving them the money to get those resources to kill our people. And they know the government that's in power. And mind you, Abiy is the Nobel Peace Prize. For what reason? Because he stopped the fight between the Eritrean people and the Ethiopian people. And now he's doing the exact opposite and he's putting war on Tigray. He's killing our people. He's putting war on Eritrean people. He's just doing the most. Abiy is not going to stop. He's showing who he is. He's showing that he's not fit to be in position to be a prime minister. He is showing he's not fit to be even a human being. So Abiy needs to go. The Canadian government needs to stop funding the Ethiopian government and the Oromo government. No way we are doing this to our own people. I will not accept that.
Thank you. Both of you, as a political science and international relations student and as a human rights student, Mustariha. Milko, let me ask you this. There are fundamental principles and fundamental rights of humanity, basic necessity of human lives, food, shelter, and clothing is being deprived to the Oromo political party families and to the Tigrayan people in the whole region recently. Their bank account has been frozen. Any bank account that has been opened in Tigray region has been frozen. That is the direction from the chairman of the Ethiopian National Bank. And Jawar Mohammed and Bakala Garba's family, Hamza Boronas, all their bank account has been frozen. Jawar Mohammed's sister's store were robbed in broad daylight in Adama. Milko, as human rights somebody who studied political science and international relations and human rights, how could this happen in 21st century?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And to be honest, it is sad to say this, but it happens all the time. And it has happened within Ethiopia for decades after decades. Regimes where opposition leaders or anyone who does not conform or is resisting these regimes, they're subjugated to brutality and chaos and deprivation such as this. It is to completely, not only to destroy them or kill them and deprive their families, but it is to show, it is to impose fear upon them. It is literally like a ripple effect of trying to say that if you what the government basically tries to say when they do these things is that these are the consequences of you resisting. These are the consequences of what you are doing to me. So opposition leaders and their family members, unfortunately, because they have a close connection to them and because that will hurt them emotionally. And it's a fear-mongering to kill their spirits and destroy them as human beings. And in the 21st century, as sad and as inhumane as it sounds, these are things that happen worldwide, where governments and dictatorships, such as the one in Ethiopia, use excessive force, and they try to destroy those who resist them and those who don't conform to what they want the masses to conform to. Anybody who is knowledgeable and anybody who tries to express this knowledge to the masses where it could affect the governments, they will be destroyed. It's literally like going to war, and innocent civilians are caught in the crossfire. In this case, with opposition leaders, it's their family members, it's people that are dear to them, friends, all of these people that could destroy the spirit and the will of these opposition leaders and these people who resist the government to do, because they view these people as a threat. Once you're viewed as a threat, that is when it becomes chaos, and things like this, the closing of bank accounts, the repressing and deprivation of food, all fundamental things that humans need to survive. It is literally to break your will. It is to show you that this is the consequences of you resisting me. And somebody such as Abiy, who honestly, he has narcissistic behavior. He literally is disgusted by anybody who does not conform to him, anybody who resists him. He just recently, his own party members, he put them aside just for criticizing him. This is a man that has very narcissistic behaviors, is a dictator and shows dictatorship tendencies, and has literally caused war upon his people, not only in Tigray regions, but excessively in Oromo regions as we speak. Extrajudicial killings, deprivation of food, shutting down of businesses, mass imprisonment. All of these things are to create fear in these communities so they do not resist or rebel against them. And as sad as it is, it happens in worldwide communities, and even in communities where you may think they're progressive and good, these things happen. And this is what politics is, and it is very sad and destructive to masses. Yeah.
Mustaria, from human rights perspective, from the Declaration of United Nations Human Rights, does this constitute to war crime? Because Abiy Ahmed declared war on the whole region and shut down their bank account and depriving them. At the meantime, he was terrorizing them to leave the city so that he can bombard and surrender those to any TPLF leadership. Trust me, I fought all my life, TPLF regime and its leadership, but I will never, ever support persecuting the whole region, the whole ethnicity. Mustaria, does this constitute to war crime?
Yes, it absolutely does, because when people's lives are involved, that's when it falls under that category. So Abiy has not only been killing, ethnicities, he's been, like you said, depriving people of food, of shelter, like freezing people's accounts. That is also under that category, because at this point, like she said, he wants to instill fear in them. He has a very bad behavior of, I get what I want, when I want it, this has to be done my way. Like, it's a dictatorship. He is a dictator. From the beginning, we knew that. But Abiy, his mindset is just beyond, I want this to be like that. He wants certain things done a certain way so it can satisfy him. Like you said, he deprived people of food, shelter. People went into, what's her name's, Jor, I think you said Jor's sister? Was it Jor's sister?
Yes.
Jor's sister's shop. And to me, it just feels like that's Abiy's job being done. Like, he sent those people to go into that shop and rob her of her needs, of her house. It's something she put all her time and effort into. And that just shows this man is very narcissistic, and he's not thinking of anybody. He's not thinking of humans. He's not thinking of people in general. He's thinking of himself. He put his own party aside for the very simple reason that they criticized him. He can't take that. He, as a person who's always been for him, who's always been narcissistic, he can't take somebody resisting what he wants. He can't take that resistance. So the one thing he can do is install fear, remove all the necessities that they need so they will back down. And if they back down, then they're back to begging him and, following his orders, following what he does and following what he says. And that gives him power. That's what he feeds off of, power. And if he does not feel like he, can't get power, he's going to use your family as a way of getting that power. He's going to kill the people you're close to, kill, your friends, use you in ways you can't even imagine so he can maintain that power. And that is very disgusting. A human that is very power hungry, that can't even see what he's doing to other humans, is very disgusting. And that type of person should not be in power. Like, there is absolutely no reason why someone like that should be in power. You're saying that this person is not fit to be in position because he's not only a dictator and killing ethnicities, he is now showing narcissistic behavior. He's thinking for himself, he's thinking for his family, he's not thinking for Ethiopia, he's not thinking for the Oromo people, he's not thinking for the Tigray people, he's not thinking at all. He's thinking for himself, his necessities, what he needs to satisfy himself with. He's not thinking of anybody else beyond that. So it goes beyond just saying that, does this fall under the war crime? What Abiy has done falls under many categories, multiple categories. That's why he needs to take accountability. And if he took accountability, there's no way someone like that will be in power ever again. There's no way, because Abiy is showing examples of narcissistic behavior, dictator, somebody who, wants to do what they want when they want, somebody that doesn't care, and somebody that's very inhumane and is not fit to be in position. So if he took accountability, which I doubt, but if we get him to take accountability, there are many categories, the things that he's done, the behavior he's shown will fall under. And that is why it is very important to fight back, resist back, because he is not acknowledging your existence. So he has to expect your resistance instead. So keep fighting and get him to know that you're not scared. You are not afraid of who he is. You're not afraid of what he's doing. You're not afraid of being Oromo. That is what he doesn't want. He wants you to stand behind him. He wants you to support him. He wants you to show, like, I stand with him even though he's killing my people. Absolutely not. Not happening. Not happening at all, especially with Eros and Kares of this generation. We are very stubborn. We will not stand by somebody that is killing our people. We will not stand at all for even prosecution in general should not even be a law at all, and if he's killing people, killing individuals, innocent people, nobody will stand by him at all. He will lose that power eventually. He will lose, the power that he's using to instill fear into people regardless, and that day will come. I truly believe that.
I have done my question so far. I will give you about 2 minutes. If you think there is anything that needs to be said from your side, I'll give you, Milko, 2 minutes to conclude, and go ahead, please.
Yes. All I would like to say regarding the Oromo struggle and the issues of Ethiopia is that, like history, it repeats itself. And if we as human beings collectively, not just in Ethiopia, not just in Oromia, but collectively as human beings, if we don't acknowledge history and work and progress and be better and learn from it rather than repeat it, it is bound to constantly happen. And that is what has happened in the context of Ethiopia. And for any progression to happen in Ethiopia and in Africa as a whole, history and acknowledgement and accountability needs to be present. And for Ethiopia, the history that it has taught is either half a representation or false representation. And it has to acknowledge the constant abuses. It has to acknowledge the formation of that country. It has to acknowledge these communities and the effects that have been had for years upon years of these communities. And it has to be conscious of the diversity and the differences of its country rather than impose its will upon people. What has happened is in Ethiopia is imposing and enforcing an assimilation of people who are not allowed to have their identities. They're not allowed to represent themselves. They're not allowed to exist. And they're fundamental human rights that have been disregarded. These are fundamental human rights that are constantly being violated. And this is the second largest population of Africa. And Oromia possesses a lot of resources, and it has been exploited for generations after generations. And Oromo people have felt the brunt of what brutality can do. And they have never gained a single thing from their own work, from their own lands. And they constantly keep being displaced. They constantly keep being destroyed. And they're one of the few indigenous groups in this planet to still be the majority of a country. And until Ethiopia does right by Oromo people, because Oromos are vital to the construction of Ethiopia. Without Oromo people, a lot of Ethiopian structures would fail. If we're being honest, it has to acknowledge the Oromo communities. It has to allow for diversity. It has to allow for fundamental human rights to exist. This is not asking for too much. These are fundamental human rights that you are entitled to as a human being. And accountability needs to happen. And these governments and members of these cabinets and governments need to be held accountable publicly for the crimes that they commit, for the destruction that they cause. Whether they resign or not, these people, they leave their positions and they still get to exist. They still get to enjoy the free will of society after millions and thousands of deaths, after millions and thousands of imprisonments, of destroying people's lives. That is unacceptable. And for Ethiopia, if it wants to evolve, if it wants to transgress past what it has been, it needs to acknowledge this. It needs to constantly be conscious of its effects on human beings and the policies and the differences that are vital to understanding each other. And communication needs to be the first step in that. Acknowledgement, engaging in dialogues rather than declaring war needs to happen. Policies that are collectively beneficial need to happen. Accountability needs to happen. All of these things are vital to any society living freely. And that's all I'm going to say regarding the Ethiopia issue. And for the Oromo communities, I would just like to state that Oromo youth back home, especially, they are the greatest thing to happen to all of us as Oromos and the planet in itself. I want to shout out the Oromo youth that have sacrificed everything to not only represent themselves, but to resist regimes that have constantly brutalized them. These are communities suffering from pandemics, suffering from poverty, suffering from locust infections in farmers. Oromos are agricultural people. They're suffering in every single facet of life, not only economically, financially, physically, every single facet of life, Oromos are suffering. And for them back home, for the Oromo communities back home, I would just like to say that they're the heroes of my lifetime, and they will continuously inspire me. They will continuously motivate me to continue any work, because their sacrifices are not trivial. These are human beings who do not have a single thing, sacrificing their entire existence for any type of progress. And the Oromo youth especially, who are going every single day, not knowing that they will return home, and not even existing in their own homes, not knowing if they will live or die that day. They are everything that the Oromo community will ever need. And no government and no regime will ever break the will of the Oromo youth back home. And I'm not stating that as an opinion, I am stating that as a fact, because we have seen it for generations after generations.
Thank you, Milko. Thank you indeed. Mustaria?
Yeah, I definitely agree. Milko said it perfectly. Like, there are many things that Ethiopia needs to acknowledge and Ethiopia needs to have for progression. One being acceptance, diversity is a big one, acknowledgement, the right type of government for, ruling. Because if we don't have the right type of people to lead us, we're going to end up in the same position. We're going to end up in oppression again and again. And it's the same people that we want protection, for, like, that we want the government to protect us. These are the same people killing us. And if we keep standing behind them, hoping, one day they're going to stand by us, they're going to, fight for Oromos as much as we're fighting for us, they're going to give us rights. They're not going to. We have to be willing to fight for us. We as Oromos have to be fighting together. We have to show them that they cannot instill fear in us, that we are not going to stop fighting for our people. We're not going to stop fighting for what's ours, what's rightfully ours, and what we want as ours. Democracy, we are going to fight for it. These are the things that isn't going to stop, because we're going to get this. Bilisuma, Walubuma, we're going to get all of it. Independence, we're going to get it one day, because it's the fact that we're fighting together, standing together as Oromos, holding hands, standing by each other, fighting for it. And as Milko said, the Qeros and Qares back home, you guys are beyond strong. We are standing behind you. We're fighting with you. We hear you and we see you, and we cannot do this without you because you guys are on the front line. You guys are risking your lives on a daily basis for your freedom, for you to just go and live. And we have privilege, but we stand behind you. We will use our privilege to try and get this issue to be known worldwide. We will do our best. But I just want everybody to know back home and everybody here to know that our Oromoma is never going to die. As long as we fight for it, we are not going to go extinct. As long as we fight for our language, our culture, our tradition, we are not going to die. And you have to be willing to be proud to make sure that happens. If you're not proud of who you are not going to go far. You are going to let that part of you, that special part of you, your people, your ethnicity, if you are not proud of those, your Oromoma is going to die. And especially in the diaspora, it is so easy to get lost in things and to get so wrapped up and caught up in different, ethnicities and be proud and happy showing those ethnicities, but not yours. You have to be equally willing to represent your people, equally willing to show who you are through your people and stand up for them, because that is the only time you have identity. When you as a person are known with an ethnicity, because I'm so proud as an Oromo person to be known for Oromo. I am so proud as an Oromo girl, as an Oromo Qarre, to be known as Oromo, because that is my identity. Being known as Oromo is my people, my life, my identity, everything I stand for, everything I stood for, everything I'm going to stand for, and everything I'm fighting for. So I'm so proud. And as long as you are proud, I promise you, nobody can install fear in you. Not even Abiy himself can install fear in you. These are the type of things you need to remember to fight forward. Be proud of who you are. Stand with your brothers and sisters, because those are the people that are truly going to understand your pain. Nobody is going to understand the oppression we face, the pain that we felt, the tears we've cried, the bloodshed that we've seen. Nobody's going to understand that better than your own Oromo sisters and brothers. So you need to be embracing that. Embrace who you are, embrace your Oromoma, and stand and hold that flag with a smile, because that is what they don't want us to do, but we're resisting, and that's exactly what we're going to do. But going on after that, thank you for having me. And thank you for letting me speak on this. I'm so proud of who I am, and I'm so proud that this is how far we've come. And I'm so glad that we're being given the opportunity to talk on this issue, because it needs to be known everywhere. So thank you.
Our dear valued Gada News Network viewers, I would like to say thank you on behalf of Gada News Network to my valued guest Mustaria Muhammad and Milko Badaso, our future leaders, our brave activists here in Winnipeg, Manitoba. As we discussed, the Oromo issue is the hot cake issue of Ethiopian politics. Any regime that undermines and undervalues Oromo will not succeed. As of the current affairs, the war in Tigray is unconstitutional. Every individual with right mind should oppose this war, because I believe this war is the war declared on multilingual, multi-ethnic federation. Once they destroy the strong Tigray regime, as they have been publicizing on social media, they will come down to dismantle ethnic federalism and declared one language, one culture, and one flag, Ethiopia. We are not ready to accept that. We came so far, long way to get back to that point. Victory is for the Oromo people and for nation and nationalities. Until next time, have a blessed time. See you next time. Thank you.
Kutatako Yanadiko Sumatambae de Abako Ekapsai kapsof do Gurba Ewanti bara barandarba Hidante hidagote amale Kaletif zuwa ebisankale Hidadu danno jabati data Hidando ketin dina bojita Jabadu bili sumabdiane Abdi kutate akande bine Oe viscono la lutino Corre viscono la lutin corru Otuma bubben orso kesatu Arra levek nagarati gorru Kale sana div dabasa guyo akkuma salphatti dhabne wayyo qabsoon harkatti daarar keessa Jawaarinis jette shoror keessa Jabaate to falma binisite bilisumma dangalon deate Warega mas basa turrekale tikaf gudda kenyatti awwalle Kale kaase naftanya daf jirma arrasa awwalin sikale morma Kandur dibne difama jetteti barana murtiin isa dhumaati Bisako nakesa jirta bari jabako falmatako usmayoko bakka kembue ani ilmike tinchilako ya dadiko sumatambae dufe jabako ya didako barsisako Ya teko akka ken falmadha biyya koof